Responsible investing is gaining momentum globally. Albeit slow in South Africa, we are catching on to this trend. Environmental, social, and governance factors are now forming the backbone of investment portfolio decision making. Welcome to Window on the Week, and today we are joined by Reino Orth, Portfolio Manager, as well as April Mtupa, Analyst and ESG Lead at Imara Asset Management, to chat about ESG and the world of investments. Reino and April, it is a privilege to have you on Window on the Week. Reino and April, it's a privilege to have you on Window on the Week. It is no secret that ESG investing is highly correlated with reduced portfolio risk and healthier returns. Making positive impact is part of conscious capital and leadership, with multiple stakeholders keeping a closer watch on investment portfolios. To that end, Reino, can you shed some light on how you have integrated ESG factors in the construction of your investment portfolios? Do you use ESG ratings in your decision making?
Thanks, Kunal. That's a great question. So we've used ESG ratings since 2011. It's been quite a long and hard road. It wasn't easy to simply do it overnight. So as a fundamental research investment house, we looked at any factors that impact long-term investment performance. And we realized quite early on that governance factors have quite a big impact. So I would say 10 years ago, we mainly focused on governance factors. But about 4 or 5 years ago, we realized that social and environmental factors correlate to governance factors. So we included those sub-factors as well. Now, building our database has been a diligent and rigorous and long process. So after every quarterly release, we would absorb all the public information into our database, and we also, relate that information back to management and try and verify some of the facts. Now, in terms of decision making, we've developed a proprietary ESG score that we've integrated into our investment decision making database. And if you looked at Africa, there's about 1,100 listed stocks, and we've probably got about 120 in our investment universe. Now, just to give you a view of our investment decision making dashboard, there are quality factors, there are valuation factors, and there are growth factors. And alongside the fourth pillar of that is our ESG score. Now, the way it works is if our investment universe is about 120, I would say the ESG score has excluded about 50 of that 120 companies, where we have found that the ESG ratings are just too low, or that it's trending lower, and we need to investigate that and find out why. We've typically found that we've used ESG to exclude some companies from our investment universe. Interestingly enough, there's another way we use it as well. So we found that with two companies we like equally, say two retailers, with the same quantitative valuation or growth scores, we use it as a tiebreaker. The one with the higher ESG score is the one that we prefer. And then, as a responsible investor, we've also had to execute proxy votes over time. And that's also a level of ESG engagement, where we engage management to ascertain what their ESG approach is, because sometimes there's either a governance or a social or environmental issue that we have to vote on. So that's also been an important dimension. But overall, the philosophy for us is that, ESG impacts a company's brand, and the brand impacts the long-term performance of that company. Our view is that if a company does good, the consumer will reward that, and it will reward that with a good brand and a company that maintains market share over the long term. And so that's, in a nutshell, how we use ESG in our investment process.
One of the reasons why ESG investing has become more mainstream is because of millennials and the rise of activism. So, April, from one millennial to another, how do you see this trend continuing in the near future, and how would you take this into account when analyzing a company?
Well, thanks for the question, Kunal. You rightly brought up the rise of activism, and I think along with that drive and push for change comes a huge responsibility on how we achieve long-term sustainable change. I think activism has allowed the voice of the previously voiceless to come to the fore, and we're much more aware than possibly any previous generation about the wide-ranging impacts of our decisions. Polarity, action, and reaction exists in every part of nature, and the more you're heard, the more responsibility you have. And I hope this will be our legacy moving forward. The workplace of the future has such promise with a 360-degree view of the individual and therefore the company as a whole. As we're all part of a larger ecosystem with the corporate included, people can't be seen as devoid of their context. We carry it with us. So it's important to understand the great responsibilities that companies have to ensure their practices support and develop this context, as opposed to just take from it. A step further than that is incorporating environmental impact, climate change, energy transition, and how that impacts the decisions and products a company chooses to focus on. The socially responsible organization is innovative, flexible, and able to adapt itself to its context while still keeping a strong backbone of its own operating and internal culture. Companies that we've seen doing this well, and there are many, have sustainability truly embedded in their DNA, and for many, it's their competitive edge. It's quite exciting to be part of and witness this shift firsthand, and I'm optimistic about how this will go, especially with the rise of big data and data analytics. I think finding new ways of incorporating non-financial, non-traditional data is quite amazing to see. And for now, many ESG aspects are primarily qualitative, with different sources having unique ways of incorporating and sorting through that data. But over time, we expect to see some standardization. And at the same time, this presents an opportunity for each corporate to integrate ESG in a way that still honors their overriding strategy. I see this being more stratified and quantified over time. I think when assessing a company now, it's no longer just the traditional metrics. It's also through our own internal investment metrics, including non-traditional data, coupled with an ESG filter. With ESG ever evolving and the assessments becoming more nuanced, engaging directly with managers has been an active means of helping companies improve their ESG practices and let them know what investors are looking for. We're impressed year on year with the improvement in sustainability disclosures in our African universe, as well as the grassroots impacts that many of the corporates actively do. Part of why we love working in Africa is having the ability to directly engage teams and see an improvement in business practices. We have several examples of in-company engagements where we believe our interaction with management led to positive behavior modification, particularly in smaller markets.
Well, there you go. Let us not underestimate the power of capital to effect change. By being forward-thinking, optimistic, and more mindful regarding the impact that our investments have on the world, we can help to shape a more sustainable future. Rainer, April, thank you for your great insights to this episode of Window on the Week. I trust you will be looking at the ESG GPS rating tool in your decision-making going forward. I am Kunal Kalyan, and thank you for joining us for another exciting episode. We look forward to seeing you next week. Stay safe.